Out front now, former New Jersey Attorney General Ann Milgram, CNN political correspondent Abby Phillip, politics editor for the New York Times Patrick Healy, and former GOP committee counsel for House Oversight during the Clinton impeachment investigation, Sophia Nelson. So, Abby, the reporting tonight that Pompeo wouldn't defend his own ambassador, in part because he was afraid of Rudy Giuliani, who was essentially running, I guess, in the case of Ukraine, certainly a separate State Department. What does this tell you?
It tells you how afraid even one of President Trump's favorite cabinet members is of Rudy Giuliani and the power that he has with President Trump. Giuliani has direct access to Trump, which not that many people really have, although the president has a fairly lengthy call list compared to his predecessors. But it also tells you that Pompeo is someone who we know has political ambitions. He wants to remain in good favor with Trump, and he's clearly cautious of getting on the wrong side of someone who is known to, once he is against you, really mount a campaign against you with the president. Remember, there was something that we probably forgot. There was this pile of papers that Giuliani passed on to Pompeo about Ambassador Ivanovich. And Pompeo took that pile of papers and he handed it directly to the Inspector General for the State Department, washing his hands of that incident. But I think what that tells me is that Pompeo is aware of how Rudy Giuliani's disinformation campaigns can go and how dangerous it can be for Trump appointees.
And so he felt that. I mean, and in the testimony released today of that top diplomat to Ukraine, Bill Taylor, which I mentioned, we see Taylor testify that he raised concerns about Giuliani's work in Ukraine to Pompeo, right? So Pompeo being the head of the State Department, people are going to go to him. And EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland also testified he raised Giuliani with Pompeo. And by the way, Sondland is right as Trump's, $1 million donor. And according to the transcript, Sondland said, quote, Pompeo rolled his eyes and said, yes, it's something we have to deal with. That's his reaction. And when he has been asked repeatedly about Giuliani, he's done this.
In mid-February, you were in Warsaw. And so was Rudy Giuliani. During your time there, did you meet with Giuliani?
I don't talk about who I meet with.
So you're not going to say whether you met with him?
So when I was in Warsaw, I had a singular focus.
So I would take that as a yes. He did meet with Rudy Giuliani, because I think if he didn't, he would say no. I wouldn't have met with the president's personal lawyer in Warsaw. But the bigger issue here is that you now have multiple people saying that they told the head of the State Department that there were problems and issues, and that they had concerns about things that were happening. And Pompeo, the buck stops with him. He's the leader of the State Department. He is sanctioning this kind of conduct where the president is literally using his personal lawyer to try to pressure a foreign adversary to impact the next election. And so you can't really do the hear no evil, see no evil thing for Pompeo because he runs that department. And so
it's pretty incredible. I mean, Sophia, what happens then to Mike Pompeo? It certainly appears from at least what we're seeing in the House of Representatives, you're not going to see Mike Pompeo testifying.
Well, nothing's going to happen to Mike Pompeo because President Trump loves Mike Pompeo and vice versa. So from that standpoint, there's really no way to deal with this and what he hasn't done in his proper function as Secretary of State. I think as far as, him testifying, that's never going to happen, as you know, because the White House would then claim privilege. And I think that, Mike Pompeo's been an embarrassment, if I can just be direct about it. He has sat on these interviews like a Stepford wife. Have you seen the look on his face? He's like he's glassed over. I'm not going to talk about this. I don't talk about this. He's run away literally from reporters. It's not a good look on him, and I can see why morale at the State Department is down. Makes sense.
And Patrick, we are also hearing that from multiple aides that that morale is terrible, that the Secretary of State's standing has been hurt. This is a person, of course, with immense personal political ambition beyond his current job, whether it be Senate or a White House run himself. How big of an issue is this for Mike Pompeo?
Yeah, I think it's very significant because the reality is since Donald Trump became president, the State Department has been, really kind of an odd man out. I mean, through now 2 successive secretaries of state, they've seen so much of the power vested in the Chief of Staff, the National Security Advisor, the Defense Department, others in the White House, and now they thought they were getting someone with Secretary Pompeo who had the president's trust, had the president's support, who would be empowered to defend ambassadors, defend the diplomatic corps. But then, lo and behold, basically Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal lawyer, was running a shadow foreign policy, and Mike Pompeo, who was supposed to be the one that people could trust out of the president's ear, he himself wasn't able to sort of stop this. So the State Department has just been in this kind of limbo, since Trump took office, and I think the degree to which they look to Pompeo for leadership and for stability, I think you're seeing now with the impeachment inquiry, that stability just isn't there.
I mean, and Abby, this comes as, Vice President Mike Pence's aide, Jennifer Williams, we understand, obviously a State Department employee and not a political appointee, but was in the White House, was on that call, is going to testify. She's going to defy the White House, and she's going to answer to that subpoena tomorrow, and she had concerns about the call.
Yeah, every time one of these aides testifies, it's clearly because they know that they're doing it with the State Department opposing that decision for them to do it. So her decision is really critically important. She feels like she has something to say, and maybe it is that she did have concerns about it. The question will be for her, why didn't she say something when others who were on the call did? They went to
Right, 'cause we
White House
understand
lawyers.
she did not raise it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She did not raise those concerns. But I think we're getting a little bit closer. I mean, I don't want to overstate this because it's not clear to me that Jennifer Williams had the kind of direct contact with Trump that can be kind of this missing link in the investigation as we go forward.
Right.
But it really starts to answer some of the Pence elements of this. How much did Mike Pence know? And how many other people on that call had concerns about what was going on, and what exactly were their concerns? Was it clear to her that this was a quid pro quo? That would be yet another witness, if she were to say that, yet another witness who gives that kind of line of testimony.
And it's interesting in the context of what Abby's saying, again, she's current.
Right.
Now we know Morrison, right, was slated to leave and then left immediately. But you have these people who are currents.
Yeah.
So she's then going to defy the White House and the State Department and testify and then ostensibly go back to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's courageous. We're seeing a number of folks who could easily say, well, the White House has told me not to, so I'm going to defy a lawful subpoena. And people aren't doing that. I also think it's incredibly important to what Abby said, that it's not people with hindsight saying something wrong happened. It's people who are saying, at that moment in time, I knew something wrong was going on and I had a problem with it. And some people acted based on that, some people didn't. But still, it's that moment in time to have that sort of sense of, you hear a call and you think, that's not right. The President of the United States shouldn't be doing this for the 2020 election. And having that moment in time that we're now all talking about, I think is really critical for evidence.
All right, all of you, please stay with me.